Good afternoon, Knox Camps. I hope you're all doing well. Today, I'm going to be teaching you all about Scratch. And so, this is what we're going to be using for today and on Thursday to code. So, the first step is to get on scratch.mit.edu. This is the site we'll be using to do our coding, and it's super simple. And I'm going to walk you through it today, and we're going to even make a game out of it. So the first step is to go here onto the website and then click on Create, and then just give it a second. And it'll be loading your stuff. And then this is the first screen you'll get. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to close the tutorial because I'll be your tutorial for the day. And then get rid of this cat sprite by clicking on this button right here where my mouse is. Click on that, and then we have a fresh canvas to start our project. So just so everyone knows, you can pause and stop this video at any time you want because a lot of the stuff I'm doing is probably new to most of you. And if there's any confusion, just make sure to pause it, and then you can go back to see what I did to see if hopefully that will explain it better. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to explain the layout of Scratch. So here we have a coding tab. So here we have the motion, looks, sound, events, control, sensing, operators, variables, and my blocks. So all of these are going to be the things we're going to be using to be making the game. We'll talk about those more later. Here we have where the playing of the game is actually going to happen. Down here is where we have all of our objects, where we create and draw things. And then this is our background. And then this open white space right here is where we're going to bring things in to be coding with it and moving the blocks all around. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make a ball. So take your cursor and bring it all the way down to this plus sign. So it says choose a sprite. What we're going to do is we're going to click choose a sprite. And then it loads up a whole bunch of different sprites we can pick. But we're going to go all over here, and then we are going to pick the ball. And then click on the ball, and then it should appear right down here in the corner. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have ball clicked. So we know it's clicked when there's a blue border around it. And then we're going to bring the cursor all the way up to costumes. Click on costumes. And then what we're going to do is click the fill button where my cursor is. All of this stuff is different things to draw with. But what we're going to do is we're going to click the paint button. And we are going to pick whatever color you want. I'm going to keep it at purple. But there's so many different colors you can choose from. And then just click on the ball. And now we have a purple ball. And then bring your cursor all the way back over to code, click back there, and now we're back to where we were before. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make two more sprites. So we're gonna go back down over here to where we made the ball before, but instead of clicking choose a sprite, we're gonna go up to the paint sprite. So we're gonna click on that, and it will bring us back to the costume section. But because we don't have a costume right now, we have nothing. So bring your cursor down to the rectangle, click on it, go over up here to outline. Make sure that this button with the red line crossing like that is clicked because we don't want to have an outline. And then pick a color. So for this one, I think I'm going to do pink for this one. So once I've picked pink, I'm going to drag it across the screen. So once make sure rectangle is clicked, and then click on a point, and then drag it down. So make it about that shape. So about this sort of skinny little rectangle. And so we're going to take it, and we're going to drag it. See how we can click and drag it now? We're going to drag it until this middle cursor sort of clicks into place. So I'm moving it to the side, and that sort of clicks. It stops for a second. So once it's there in the middle, we're going to let go and leave it there. And then we're going to go over to code like we did before, And now we have a pink rectangle. And you can move them here in this display as well. So click on the pink rectangle, and we are going to name this paddle left because it's going to be on the left side. And then what we're going to do is we are going to right click. So that's the second button on your mouse. Or if you're using a laptop, sometimes using 2 fingers to click is a right click. And then you're going to hit this button called duplicate. So duplicate makes another one. Now we have 2, but this one's going to be on the right. So we go over to where we named it before. We're going to select it, and we're going to name it right. So paddle right. And so now we have paddle 1 and paddle 2. I think I want to make my paddles a bit smaller. So I am going to go to size, and let's see what 80 looks like. So right now it's 100. I'm going to make it 80. That looks much better for what I want it to do. And then that means I have to go to the right one. So that is all the drawing we're going to have to be doing. And now it's on to the coding. So the game we're going to be making today is called PONG. And the way PONG works is you have 2 paddles. I'll use my left and my right hand, and they go up and down. You've probably seen something like this before. And then there's a ball. So my head will be the ball in this demonstration. And it basically goes dong, 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 dong. And you basically keep bouncing the ball back and forth, sort of like tennis. And so we need to make it so the ball knows when it's hitting against our rectangles, so our paddles. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to operators, and we are going to take the or. So see how it's like a space here, or space? We're going to bring that one out and drag it right into here. Make sure, because see when we select the different paddles, it shows different screens. We want to make sure we have the ball selected. So you can tell the ball selected because when we click on it, a blue square appears here, a blue square appears here, and it should show a tiny icon of the ball in the top right. So we have our or, and then what we have to do is we go to sensing. And so because we want to know when our ball is touching the left paddle and the right paddle, we grab this box right here. So this says touching, and then when we click on this drop-down box right here, we click, it shows different things that it can sense. And so it can, the mouse pointer, which is this, the edge, which would be the edge of the screen, paddle left, and paddle right. And because we want both paddle left and paddle right, we make this one paddle left, and then we grab another one, and we make this one paddle right. And then we're going to drag these into these little holes. So you drag them over, and then it will show like a white outline on the hole, and then you let go, and then they'll click right into place. And the next thing we want in the control section, so we want this, it's called if. So if blank then. So we want the ball to bounce if it is touching the paddle left or the paddle right. So we bring this in, same thing as before. It'll show a white outline around it. And then once we see it, we let go, and now it's locked in. So what this means is if it's touching paddle left or touching paddle right, then it will do whatever is in this bottom space here. So we want it to bounce. So the way we're going to make it bounce is we're going to go to motion, and then we're going to click on turn, and then it's going to be this one right here. So we're going to drag that, and we're going to make sure it's dragged right inside this orange part. And we're going to click it, and we're going to set the number to 90 degrees. So what this means is if it's touching our left paddle or our right paddle, it will turn 90 degrees, which, if you know more advanced math, that means it's going to turn a direct bounce. And then you'll see how that works later on when we finish more of the code. Before we move on to any of the next steps, I made a big mistake. I misspelled the word paddle. So this is a great chance to learn how to rename objects. So I spelled it P-A-D-E-L. What we need to spell it is P-A-D-D-L-E. So click on the paddle left, and then click here, and then we're going to change the spelling to P-A-D-D-L-E. And that is the correct form of spelling paddle. We're going to do the same to the right paddle. And so now our spelling mistake is fixed, and we go back to the ball. And also the spelling mistake gets fixed for our touching commands as well. So the next thing we want is we want the game to be constantly checking if it's doing that. So if it's doing the steps we made earlier. So we grab this in control, click on forever. So we're going to put it here, and then we're going to drag it into forever. So what this means is while the game is running, it's going to always be checking if the ball is touching the paddle left or if it's touching the paddle right. So we now have forever in. So while it's running, it will always see if it's left or right. And so the way we start to check is we go to events and then click on the flag when flag is clicked. So we'll drag that one in and connect it to the top. And now, whenever we hit the play button, so right here, this flag, go, see how it's lit up in yellow? That means it's running. That means it's checking. So we can also test to see if it's working by putting the ball and dragging it on top. And see how the direction's going crazy? That's because the ball is spinning, which is a good thing. That means it's working. So let's get the ball to relax a bit, and we're going to move it off for now. And then once we want the game to stop, we'll hit this stop button right here. Cool. So the next step is we're going to go to motion. And because we want this ball to be bouncing everywhere, right? That's how this game works. But first, it's not moving anywhere. We need it to actually move somewhere. So we're going to grab this, move 10 steps. We're going to grab that, and we're going to drag it in down here first. And I think we should change it to 5 steps because 10 steps is a lot. Well, you can set to however you want, but for now, we'll just keep it at 5 because 5 is, I think, just enough. So bring that and put it right underneath this if statement that we made earlier. And so once we hit play, it's going to, oh no, just hit the wall. But see, because it's moving the 5 steps, it's going up because we have it currently pointing in the up direction. But we don't want that. We want it pointing at a 45-degree angle right now. So what that means is if you go down here to direction, we want to click this button, and that brings up this big circle. So we want to twist it this way and this way and this way until you see 45 in this section right here. Or you can just type in 45 if you want, but I like using the big circle. So now it's moving diagonally, which is what we want. That's how we want it to bounce. But the problem is, like if we make it go and bounce against the paddle, it's going to bounce right off, which is awesome. That's what we want. The big problem here is watch, it doesn't bounce off the walls or the edge of the screen. So how we fix that is we'll go into motion and we'll scroll down and we'll scroll down and then see this block right here. If on edge, bounce, which is exactly what we want. So we'll bring that and we'll put it right on top of all of it. So we'll put it right here underneath the forever, but just before the if statement. So now watch this. If we just hit play, the ball should be bouncing perfectly. It bounces off the edges, off the paddles, and watch, we can even move the paddle like here, and then it bounces off those too. We're gonna do the paddles. So let's start with the left one because that's the one we made first. So I'm gonna drag it back into place, and then we're gonna click on the paddle, make sure that you see the blue box selected on it, and that you can see the pink box right up here in the top right corner. Sweet. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure once we start the game, it goes exactly where we want it to go. So we're going to scroll up and we're going to find this. Go to X number, Y number. So we're going to drag that in, and we can change these values to whatever we want, like 45 and 120. And then that means it's going to go to X. This is X 45 and Y 120. Y is up and down, as you can see here, and X is left and right. You don't have to worry too much about it because I'll be giving you all the right numbers, but it is very important to know when you're doing a game like this. So I want it about here. So I think if we look right there at the numbers, so I want it about here. So this number is minus 200 for X. So let's make this minus 200. And then the Y is 2, but I think if we change it to 0, that looks perfect. So we'll make Y equal to 0. So that, no matter where we put it, we click this button, it goes right where we want it. So we want it to go right there, right when we start the game too. So just like we did with the ball at the top when the flag is clicked, we'll do that to this one too. So we can move it wherever we want. It could be anywhere, but then when we hit go, it goes right back in place just in time to hit the ball. Sweet. So our next step is we are going to make it controllable because we want to be able to bounce the ball, because if the ball is going to go out through these gaps, that's not going to work. We can't have that. So we need to make sure it's controllable. So the way we're going to do this is we are going to get an if statement like we did before. We're going to drag that in. But what we're checking for this time is if we hit a button on the keyboard. So if we go to sensing, which is the light blue, and we go key pressed, this one right here, and we'll drag 1 in. And so we'll put it right here inside the if statement like we've done before. And we're going to find the key W. W is the key I will be using for this. You can change to whatever key you want, but I find W as my up key and S as my down key more preferred for me for this one at least. And then we'll make the right paddle the up arrow and the down arrow. So now whenever we hit the W key, this trigger will activate. So we want it to be whenever we hit W, which will be our up key, we want this paddle to go up. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down, we're going to go to the motion tab, and then we're going to find the one that says change Y, because Y is the up and down, remember? So we're going to find change Y. There it is. Change Y, and we're going to put this inside, change Y by 5. So if we change it by a positive, it will go up. And if we change it by a negative, which means a minus, it will go down. So because we want it to be going up when we press W, we're going to make it change Y by 5. So let's go over. But the problem is we're not checking it constantly. We want to be checking it constantly like we're doing with the ball. So we're going to go to Control and then Forever, just like we did before. So put it right underneath the blue and then drag this if right inside there. So watch, we hit play. And now when I hit the W key, you can't see me hitting it on my screen, but I'm hitting it. It goes up. Look, it goes up. But the problem is we have no way to go down because we forgot to put that in. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the top of the if statement. So right here on the if, right click on it. So double tap on a laptop or right click with a mouse. We're going to hit duplicate. And then now we have the same thing, but we don't want to hit W again. We want to hit S this time. So we're going to go up and we're going to hit S. And here's the one thing. If we change it by 5 positive, it's just going to keep going up like we have W going. So this time we want to change it to -5. So now when we run it, our paddle goes in place. And then when I hit W, it goes up. And when I hit S, it's going to go down. So I can catch the ball, and the ball is not going to get past me. No, oh. Doop. Cool. And now we're going to move on to the right paddle. So we'll click on the paddle left, and we'll do a big old right click on it. And then we're going to duplicate, or not duplicate, sorry. We're going to drag it. We're going to drag all of it, and we're going to bring it all the way down over, right into highlighting the paddle right. And see how when we highlight it, it shakes a little bit? That means that we got the right place. So we're going to let go. And now see how paddle left didn't change? It's all still here. It's all right where we want it. But if we click paddle right, all of our code from paddle left is now inside of paddle right. But here's the issue. If we just play go, it's paddle right and paddle left are in the same spot, and they both get controlled by W and S. And we don't want that. So what we have to do is we have to change the starting location for paddle right. So what I'm going to do is this is the negative X. We're just going to make this, instead of negative 200, we're going to make it positive 200. And make sure that you have paddle right selected, because that's one we want. So now they both go to the left and the right. But here's the problem. They're still both being controlled by W and S. So this is what we have to do. We have to change W to the up arrow key. And then we have to change S to the down arrow key. And now when we play it, we have a left and a right paddle. And now you can play Pong. So this is basically the game. But here's the problem. If you're playing this with a friend, how do you know who's winning? How do you know who's losing? So the next thing we have to do is we have to make a scoring system. So that's what we're going to do next. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the ball, and we're going to scroll down a tiny little bit because we don't want to mess with the code we made earlier. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure the ball is selected. We're going to go over and click on the variables dot. So see right here, we are going to get rid of this variable. So we're going to right click, so the double tap, and then we're going to delete the my variable, because that's not the one we want. We want to make our own. So what we're going to do is see this button, make a variable. We're going to click on that, and then we're going to call this one player one score. And then we're going to make sure that it's for all sprites, and then hit OK. And then we're going to make another one. But this one will be called player 2 score. And then the same thing, make sure it's for all sprites, and then hit OK. So now, see on the screen, we have player 1 score and player 2 score. So these will be the ways we're scoring each player's points. So the one on the left will be player 1. The one on the right will be player 2. And so, but these sort of show the names of them. What we want is it just to be the number. So if you hover over it and then do the 2-finger tap or the right click on your computer mouse, hit on large readout. And then this will be player 1 score, and we'll keep it in the top corner. And then for player 2, and you can drag them side to side. And then we right click on this one and then do large readout for this one as well. So now we have player 1 score and player 2 score right on top of each one. Sweet. So the next thing we got to do is we have to change these scores because they're not going to get updated automatically. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to bring in an if statement to check if the ball touches this wall right here. So this will probably be the hardest thing we do, but don't worry, I'll show you how to do everything. So bring in an if statement right to there. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to go into the operators, and then we're going to choose this one right here. And we're going to put that right here. So it's less than, and then a certain number. So we're going to get rid of this number just for now, so it's blank. And then we are going to get X position. Make sure that you have the ball selected. We're always going to be doing stuff on the ball for this one. So we're going to bring in X position. And so what X position is the current X position, so the left or right of the ball in the game right now. And so we have that one, and we'll drag that one into here and watch. So if we drag the ball over here, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when the ball gets to here, it's about minus 220 is when it touches this wall. So what we're going to do is when the ball is less than minus 220, then the point gets scored, right? So this basically checks to see if the ball is touching the left side of the screen. So what we want to do is once that happens, we want it to go right back to the middle of the screen. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. All right, I think we're good. And then we're going to go to 0, 0. So we'll drag that in because 0, 0 is the middle. So once it scores, we want it to go right back to the middle. So we're going to change this to 0 and 0. See? If it goes right back to 0, 0, it's right here in the middle. Let us, but also if it touches the left side, we want the right side to get a point. So we need to go to variables over here. We're going to click this, change. We're going to drag that in right to here. And we're going to say change because this is player 1 side, but we want player 2 to get the point. So change player 2 score by 1 because they get 1 point for every time they touch the left wall. So now we have that. So whenever it touches the left wall, it goes up by 1 point. We want it to also count for the right side player if the ball touches their wall. So we're sort of going to do the exact same thing, but with a few changes. So we'll right click it to duplicate, just like we've done before. And so now we have the same thing on top and the bottom. We're going to switch the X position to the right side, and we're going to change this to positive 220. So when the X position is larger than 220, that means it will be touching the wall. We want to still go back to the middle, but this time, because it's touching the right side, we want player 1's score to go up. So now we have a full score system in place. But again, we need it to always be checking. So we'll go to control, just like we've done before, and we'll find the forever loop, which is right here, and we'll bring that over. So now we'll forever be checking, and we want to make sure it starts when we start the game. So that's the green flag. So we'll scroll up to the events, then click the when flag is clicked. We'll put that here. And then we'll start. And now we have a full game. Oh no, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? So I figured out my mistake. Here was my mistake. Our ball is too big. So at minus 220, it actually is past the wall. So let's go to the ball and we'll change the size right here and we'll make it 80. We'll make it 80. And now it should work. So if we hit start and we purposely move out of the way so the ball can hit the wall, now the left side, the right side points go up and the ball goes back to the middle. Now let's see if we can get the left side to score on the right side. So this means ball should go to the middle and we get a point on the left side, and we do. So now we have a fully working game. That's awesome. I'm so glad it works. So now what we have to do is but look, if I hit start again, the score stays the same. So the final thing we have to do before this game is fully finished is we remove this part, and we need to change the scores to 0 whenever we start the game. So we'll go over here to set, and then we'll drag in 1, and we'll drag in 2, and we'll change this one to player 2's score, so it resets both. So this will set player 1's score to 0, and player 2's score to 0. If we click it to check, both scores go to 0, and we'll bring it in to the top and to the bottom, and now we have a full playable version of Pong. So I hope you enjoyed, and make sure to play this game with your parents or your siblings or anyone who you want to beat at Pong. So thank you everyone for watching. I really hope you enjoy the game. And as a fun little final treat, we can change the background. So if we go over here and click on this, choose backdrop, we have so many backdrops to choose from. I think I'm going to pick the garden rock. Now we have a green backdrop, and we hit this button to do full screen. And then you can play the game in full definition of how we created it. Good job, everyone. All right. Have a good day, everyone.